Learn how film director tries to change the history of football in Italy. The city that hosts the oldest Italian classic on Sunday between Torino and Juventus may have its high importance in Italian football. Victor Vegan, 50 years. Is an actor and independent film director, producing a mix of documentary and fiction on the origin of football, and claims that the sport's ground zero in the country is Turin. The official story refers to the city of Genoa, with Genoa as the precursor of the game. Founded in 1893 within the British consulate by British officials, the club was born for the practice of cricket, mode widely spread by the English, and football, game that was still little known. But Vegan recaptured the story of a cricket club set up in Turin 6 years earlier and defends the thesis that football was also practiced there by British influence. The name of the person responsible for pioneering is Edoardo Bosio, an Italian descendant of Swiss who worked for an English textile factory in Nottingham, where he got to know football. Upon his return home, he encouraged soccer practice for cricket players to maintain their form during the winter break. Vegan goes further, attests to Torino, principal in this Sunday's classic, as heir to this story, even the club considering its date of foundation on December 3, 1906, and having celebrated a week 110 years ago. That is, by the Vegan accounts, the team is older than the rival this afternoon, Juventus, established in 1897. Torino has ancient origins dating back to 1906. Edoardo Bosio brought football to Italy and Turin in 1887 along with the first balls and the first game of red-black shirts in Nottingham, Vegan told ESPN.com. According to him, the English team was the source of inspiration for Bosio, not only in the uniform, but in the game and organization of football. Luigi Amedeo, the future Duke of Abruzzo, founded in 1889 the Nobili Torino team, composed of representatives of the nobility of the city together with Alfonso Ferrero of Ventimiglia. In order to play football matches he needed other teams to compete. In 1894, he was absorbed by the newly created FC Torinese, which was dissolved in 1906 to give rise to Torino, explained the Italian director. Vegan claims to have consulted periodicals, books and even Wikipedia references, as well as relatives of leaders and players of the time to confirm this thesis. Since the relatives of players and managers are convinced of the authenticity and importance of my research, they help me with photos and files that have been restored. One of the most special people I encountered during this period was Marco Morelli, who is grandson of Count Vittorio Morelli, who was one of the founders of Torino in 1906. His grandson has unique documents and rare photographs, as well as badges and notes made by his grandfather, with statistics, substitutions and curiosities, Vegan described for the report. He said he had already approached FIFA for more information, but the answer was that it was best to talk to the Italian Federation. He is determined to look for all the official entities and Torino FC when he finishes the work. Sheffield Football Club, the first English team since 1857 according to the rules we know today, plays in the 8th division and by choice choose never to sign up for professional football. Notts County is the first professional team since 1862, but not the first in history. In Italy, Genoa is considered the first Italian soccer team, but it was not the first team as I mentioned but the first professional one. My goal is that we should not confuse things, he said. The idea is to produce a 90-minute film, which will be a mix of documentary and fiction, and show it in cinemas, even as a freelance work. To address these difficult issues, both for the lack of audio and video prior to the year 1929 and also the lack of budget, I will tell the story from the memories of a boy, Aldo, skillfully played by Carlo Capirossi, who from a process of regressive hypnosis discovers to be Edoardo Bosio, the man responsible for the origin of soccer in the country, and the missing piece to approach the father, played by Daniele Costoli, in his first movie. I think I am going to surprise a lot of people because there are not many who went deep to research the origins as I am doing. I believe that to go forward we must understand where everything started. English inspiration. Victor Vegan was born as Loris Fort, but adopted the first version in an artistic way as aka. Born in Chivasso, a small town in northern Italy, he lived in London for 3 years and returned to his native country to complete his training as actor and director. The first work was a short film about peace between Jews and Muslims, Ashura, a history of passion and martyrdom. He then made a mix of documentary and fiction called The Memory of the Righteous, about Judaism and Christianity. The first feature was Firmamento Nerostellato Notes of Passion, which tells the story of Casale Football, a small Italian team who became champion in 1914 and where played the director's grandfather in 1927 and 1928. The film is currently at the Free Film Festival in Serbia. The interest in football is ancient. He admits that he is a Torino supporter because of his father's influence, but he likes Casale because of his grandfather's story, but also adopted Liverpool FC and likes A.S. Roma. In Brazil, I like Corinthians, in Argentina River Plate, in Portugal Benfica, in France PSG. In fact, I cannot have a club only. He said. Vegan justifies the love for so many clubs as a way of distinguishing football from faith. My faith is in God. God says we should not equate anything with him, so to have only one football club in my head would be like equating football with some monotheistic religion, but religion has a lot more meaning. So there is more than one team in Italy and England, where it is Sheffield FC, Nottingham Forest and Liverpool FC. The idea of researching the origin of Italian football was born from the period in which he lived there and thought of making a film about the history of the sport in England. Visited London, Nottingham, Derby, and Sheffield. Victor Vegan recebido pelo Sheffield, dos clubes que pesquisu. In Sheffield, he met with the team president, who formally invited him to join the English team. The first step to triage the idea of the head was given 5 months ago. During the European summer he travelled to England to research further. He eventually came close to Sheffield, the oldest club in the world and who still remains amateur, even meeting with the president of that team. He also returned to Nottingham where he discovered the history of the Torino Cricket Club and decided to tell this story. He came to make a presentation video for the project, which he called Adavtato Inizio, which lasts 35 minutes. It tells the origins of English football until arriving at Italian football. The idea of researching the origin of Italian football was born from the period in which he lived there and thought of making a film about the history of the sport in England. He visited again London, Nottingham, Derby, and Sheffield. The first step to triage the idea of the head was given 5 months ago. During the European summer he travelled to England to research further. He eventually came close to Sheffield, the oldest club in the world and who still remains amateur, even meeting with the president of that team. He also returned to Nottingham, where he discovered the history of the Torino Cricket Club and decided to tell this story. He came to make a presentation video for the project, which he called Adavtato Inizio, which lasts 35 minutes. It tells the origins of English football until arriving at Italian football. Vegan has used the material to request help to carry out the project. As an independent producer, he asks for contributions starting at €10 or $35. On the site he says that the idea is to complete the project in April next year and dreams of, perhaps, changing the history of football in Italy as he is known today.